Hey, this is Bruce. Today I'm working on a police car that I bought at a government auction. And like most police cars, it had a lot of equipment attached to it. When I bought it, they had taken the equipment off and they had put in several rubber plugs like these. And I'm going to work on these two on the trunk today and show you how to fix it. Okay, first of all, I'm going to just use a razor knife or whatever you have to get this rubber off the bottom. If you have a former police car, they've probably done the same thing. They put this glue on it and then the rubber plug. So you get that off. And what I would recommend is take some sandpaper, clean the rust off here. And then okay, I'm using a plastic spatula or like a plastic putty knife to clean off some of that goo. You don't want to damage any more of the paint than you have to, necessary. And sometimes they've made a mess underneath here, but we'll see what we've got. Clean this off, get the rubber off. Now I'm going to use some solvent to clean off the rest of it. You can use any kind of carburetor cleaner or solvent to get this stuff off, as long as it's your original paint. Now if this has been repainted, you got to be careful, because when you repaint, a lot of times it can't take the same punishment that the original paint can take. Now that's got some of it, and I'm going to clean the rest up with some other material. Okay, I tried a little rubbing compound real lightly, and it doesn't do any good. This is into the paint. So what I need to do now is I want to use a half round file. It's one that I've had for a while. It's got a handle on it, and it's really nice for that. So I'm going to use that to, at an angle, not flat, but at an angle, I'm going to work on this edge. Not only does that take the rust off, but it also makes it easier to feather in the body putty later on. Okay, so here's how it looks now that I've filed the edges down. It's a little bit of a 45-degree angle beveled edge. And I'm going to do a little bit more here. I'm going to take the file out of the hole, which I was using the way I was doing it before. Now I'm going to file it this way, getting as close as I can to the surface without touching anywhere else. Because I've got a little bit of a lip here where the antenna or whatever they had on here kind of hooved this up, and I don't want to hoove the spot around it. So I'm going to work on that, get it leveled down before we put the patch in. So as you can see, I've kind of enlarged the area a little bit, and I've kind of got my file at this angle. I keep a finger under it so I don't scratch anywhere back here, but I'm working on taking that lip off of around the hole. Now of course, if you have a big body shop and you're doing this same thing, you just take your sander and just use it. A powerful sander could do this, but I prefer to get it done now with a file, and then that way I don't have so much sanding to do later on. Okay, for this part you just need a piece of steel. I got this at a local old-fashioned hardware store, just a real average body steel. I'm just going to cut out a square. And I'm going to use a hacksaw, but it's got to have a fine-tooth blade, and you've got to hold it to keep it from vibrating too much. Okay, when you get it done, this is what I have here, and I just cut the corners off because I don't like all the real sharp edges there, but you can do it any way you want as long as it's a lot bigger than the hole, and in this case you got plenty of room, so that's good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drill a hole in the middle of this, which you may wonder why, but I'll show you. Okay, I've drilled out the hole, and I'm just going to take it and lay it here on the concrete. Make sure it's good and flat, there's no rough edges. Okay, now it's time to put the screw in it. Okay, so here's the assembly. I've got some wood that I've taken out of old furniture. It's harder wood. I put a screw through it. I'll raise the trunk lid up now. And and try to hold both. Put this plate over that screw, or I should say bolt, with a nut on the end of it, and just put it right on the end. You don't need to go very far. Okay, now you see what I'm doing? Now spin that around. And what I'm going to do is adjust this. This is something I came up with. I don't know if anybody else likes the idea or not, but you pull this up, and that puts a lot of pressure on that. You get that centered in the hole. And what I'm going to do is undo this now, and I'm going to put JB Weld up in between this plate and that. And I'll tell you what, it is a solid fix. It will be waterproof. It'd be a lot better than trying to put some mesh or fiberglass netting or something underneath there that all it takes is somebody pushing down through real hard and knock it loose, or slamming the trunk would knock it loose. This will really hold with JB Weld in between here and there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you'll see the final result. Okay, I'm using JB Weld. You can use the Quick or the original. The original takes all night to set up. We'll just use this for today, and we'll mix the two together. You don't need a ton of it, but enough to smear good on the top surface of that patch. Okay, you take the JB Weld and you smear it around your plate. You don't have to cover the whole surface. In fact, the center part, it's best not to put that on there. And I'll explain that in a minute. Just get it around here and try not to get it clear to the edge, or you'll get it all over your hands and you can't do anything. Okay. So this makes a perimeter for the seal. Now, let's see if I got the camera right here. Okay. Now we just take the metal screw here, the metal bolt, put it through there. I'll reach around from the other side. Put the nut on there. Run it up a little bit. Now I'm going to look through and see where it's right in the middle. Put it right there. Hold it. And get my braces. It'd be helpful to have another set of hands, but you can do it on your own. Okay, so I got it centered, and I bring it around, and I put these clamps under it. See, this wood is hard wood, and it can give a little bit, but it doesn't break. You can really put a good pressure on this. It's the only way I know to get a really good clamp on that, so that it's flush and tight against the bottom side of the trunk lid. Now, as you can see, there's some, at least I hope you can see, there's some JB Weld oozing up between. That's okay. You can just kind of, either if you want to smear that out with your fingers, or just leave it till later and you can sand it off. But what it's doing is it's sealing around that that gap between the trunk lid and the patch. And I'm going to leave it set for now, and then later on I'm going to come back and smooth it out. So you need to let this JB Weld Quick type cure for 4 hours. If you use the regular JB Weld, leave it all night long. Let it set up really good before you take this off. Now, you may be wondering, how would I do this if it's not a trunk or a place where you can get to the bottom, like on the roof, which a lot of police cars have a hole in the roof. Well, there's another way to do that, and I want to show you. So let's say this is on the roof where you can't get to the underneath unless you tear out the whole headliner. What you do is you measure the widest part of the hole, get an exact measurement, and then cut a piece of steel, a rectangular piece of steel, just a little bit smaller than the widest spot of the hole. So if it's on the top like that and you can't get underneath, like on a trunk, you cut out a piece of steel where it's just the width, it's the exact width, but you offset the hole. You put the hole off the center far enough so that you could go in like this and put it like that. And then you use the same setup as I have over here with the boards and the pieces of wood. But you put your JB weld on it before you stick it in the hole, because sometimes it's hard to get it back out, and you don't want to have to do it twice. Anyway, you put the JB weld on it, brace it, and that will leave a hole, and there might be a little bit of a gap on the side, but that's where you put JB weld on the top too. After it's set up really good, then you take this whole thing off. Now what about the bolt? Well, if it's in the roof area, you just unscrew it and let that nut fall down into the headliner, and it's not going to hurt anything. You won't hear it or anything. So that's the way to do it on the roof. Okay, I've taken off one of my braces here, and I'm going to put a piece of tape over this hole that was left by where the bolt was. Okay, now let's put the camera here. And so all I have to do now is just put some JB weld in that hole, let it set up, and then I'll be ready to do body work, the body putty, and finish it up. Just mixed up a little more JB weld, put it right in the hole, and it kind of levels itself when it's warm like this. It's better to use this stuff when it's warm. Don't want to use it when it's real cold. So that's it. I'll leave it at that. You can do your own body work with putty and sanding and however you want to do that. But this gives you a good solid watertight base, and it's strong. It's really strong, and this is for somebody that doesn't have a welder, doesn't want to use rivets and all that mess. You can do it this way. Good luck.